What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the original Call to Post here on the network, where we break down everything North American thoroughbred racing has to offer. And as always, I am joined by my co-host and friend, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing well. As you just said before you hit record, a little humid out here, but it's not as hot and manageable. And thoughts and prayers to the folks in Hawaii because we've got nothing to complain about here.
Amen. Yeah, I wanted to also shed light on that as well. I don't, unfortunately, maybe due to my kind of head being in the sand when it comes to maybe following the media and things like that. It just kind of hopped onto my radar, maybe 24 hours ago, essentially. And some of the images are, horrifying and really sad. I've never been to Hawaii, but obviously, I've never had a single person who's been to Hawaii have anything bad to say about the
Right.
area overall. Maybe a bad experience at a restaurant, blah, blah, blah. But overall, the island, and something that was brought up, obviously we live here in Southern California. Unfortunately, we're probably more familiar than most when it comes to wildfires. And something
Yeah.
that was brought up that I did not think about was, when that happens, you see Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Washington, those fires from everywhere. Hawaii's kind of, literally on an island by themselves. So, really unfortunate, but hopefully everything can get figured out. Ideally, I know the weather has been the very strong winds. Ideally that can somewhat calm down, but definitely thoughts and prayers going out to everyone in Hawaii. Be safe, stay safe, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of get back to normal here very soon. But if you are over there, hopefully the next hour or so you're listening to this can be a little bit of escapism, kind of get away from
Right.
life. It's kind of something. That's what we do. That's what we do this for. So hopefully we can bring that to you and just everyone in walks of life. But we have a lot to get to. Obviously, we are going to look back at last week's races, the big races, I should say. And then we have 7 races to preview, including 2 Breeders' Cup win in your ins, going across 3 tracks, kind of all over the country, which is kind of cool. But unfortunately, we have to start with, I think we went 2 or 3 episodes where we didn't really have to have a whole subject for this. But the situation at Saratoga, as I kind of put in the rundown, we are seeing, unfortunately, kind of what we saw at Churchill Downs. 7 horses have passed away essentially since July 13th. And if you're doing the math, we're recording on the 8th of, the 10th of August. And that's less than a month that we've seen 7 horses pass. And unfortunately, it came to a head this past weekend with Maple Leaf Mel in, I haven't seen it. Raider Jim, you texted me, and from what you texted me, it did the opposite of send me running to see the highlights. But you unfortunately saw it. But you want to give us your thoughts on that and the situation, unfortunately, that we're seeing at Saratoga kind of rear its ugly head after the
Right.
Triple
Right.
Crown season.
Now, you and I witnessed a little bit of a situation at the Breeders' Cup when the one horse kind of reared up and broke through the gate and all that good stuff. And that right there is a little bit harrowing to watch. And you cross your fingers for the jockey and for the guys that are inside the starting gate. I have been at Los Alamitos and seen an accident, uh, but I have never seen anything like this. This was the test stakes, pretty mischievous. Maple Leaf Mel, and as they are, Maple Leaf Mel is literally about a stride and a half away from crossing the finish line, heading to the winner's circle, and she hits down on her right leg. And it's kind of like, imagine if you can, when you hyperextend your knee and you get that feeling and your leg just pulls back up and you start hopping. Well, that's what this poor horse did, but we're talking a horse. So when it hyperextended, went down and injured its front leg, it also, the front body weight went down, and that's when the jockey got tossed. And they are coming full bore behind it. How he did not get trampled by Pretty Mischievous or anybody else was beyond me. But he actually got himself off the track, if I'm not mistaken. But just you could tell the pain and the agony that that horse was in. The real difficult part, not just that, if you know, kind of, you have talked and told the story about Cody's Wish and how heartwarming that is. Maple Leaf Mel, the trainer is Melanie Giddings. Melanie Giddings used to be a galloper. She rode, and then several years back, one day she just, I'm not going to ride anymore. She wasn't feeling 100%, and finally went to a doctor, found out she had a stage 4 cancer. It was bad. She had to have the chemo. She had to have the whole bit. She then decided she still needed to be around the horses, got into training. This horse is owned by Bill Parcells, the Giants football coach, former Giants football coach. And so this is the whole storyline, but she talks about how critical this horse was to her on her recovery and how it gives her motivation. The horse gave her motivation each and every day. And then there was this very, very heartwarming piece of film that they had where at the end of one of the days, she lays down in the hay and pulls the horse down, and the horse gets on its side, and she just wraps her arms around the horse's neck, kind of like I do with my dogs. And that's the bond that she had with this horse. Absolutely jolted me and broke my heart when I saw this happen. It was the most horrific thing I've ever seen in all the years I've watched horse racing.
Yeah, just the description. I mean, I'm feeling a little nauseous. I'm just, you can kind of understand. And as you did bring up how the jockey was, from what I read, was bumps and bruises, scrapes and cuts, which is the best possible scenario for the jockey. Obviously, for the horse, this is devastating, and obviously for the trainer. But I do think stories like that, while they are heartbreaking, I do think they need to be told, because I think from the outside, there are a lot of people that look at horse racing and see things like this and think that trainers, owners, and jockeys look at these horses as commodities or instruments to better their careers or this or that, whatever, kind of callous thought you want to put in. But I think when you see bonds like that, and a lot of these people, I would say 98% of the people who are connected to these horses, all the way down, excuse me, to the barn workers, to the outpost, all those, everyone, all the way up to the trainer, jockey, owner, they get these connections to these horses. And I think even just getting a connection to one horse, it kind of allows that every other horse that you see knows, that someone has a connection to that. Very similar to how we look at it and go, you know what, when we see something sad from, we don't know that person who passed away, but we can all kind of put ourselves in that shoes, or in the
Correct.
shoes of that person. And what I thought and what I read was, excuse me, the name is the trainer of Pretty Mischievous,
Brandon Walsh.
Thank you. Very, very, very classy. I believe from what I read, gave the not true. I don't know if it was the sash, I think is what it was.
It was the floral
Yeah.
drapery that they put around them. And yeah, I mean, that race up to that point, it lived up to the hype. It was Pretty Mischievous and Maple Leaf Mel, and they were going at it. And Maple Leaf Mel just, had shifted gears and was just, definitely going to win the race. And it ends up that Pretty Mischievous gets, who was running second, ended up getting the win, the winner's circle. But Walsh didn't hesitate, took the floral wreath right off of the horse and took it over to Melanie Giddings right there, and they just draped it over Maple Leaf Mel's barn door. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And apparently now there's another 2-year-old, and I don't know, I can't recall what the name of the horse is, but also related to Maple Leaf Mel. And Melanie Giddings said, if anybody's going to be in her barn, it's going to have to be this one. And so nice to see that she's actually already trying to come around and keep her head straight. But man, my heart just really went out on that one.
It's got to be so tough, for Brendan Walsh, obviously doing the right thing, but the winning the test, and with all due respect to Brendan Walsh, I'm not terribly familiar with him. So that could very well be his biggest win as a trainer. You can't celebrate. I mean, maybe you go in, but I think even the most cold-hearted, how can you feel good
Right.
in that situation? It's really, really heartbreaking. And, on the bigger pictures, I kind of alluded to, we're focusing on Maple Leaf Mel, but there have been 6 other incidents that have resulted in the deaths of these thoroughbred horses. And we go back to Churchill at the beginning. I mean, I don't even want to think about the number that we're talking about just from 2 tracks, and the biggest tracks of all. And I always hammer home the fact there is never a good time for this to happen. But on, Saratoga is probably arguably their biggest day of the year on national TV. Once again, doesn't matter, but it also kind of does for horse racing as a whole. This is once again a call to, get that the government situation. I forget the exact name of it, to get that ball rolling. And once again, we're talking about New York and Kentucky. Now, obviously, different situations, but I just feel like at the very least, if we start at least doing something. Now, it might take some tweaking. We might go down one road and realize, we should have maybe made a left back there, and then we can backtrack. That's fine. But I'm a little disheartened that it does seem like we're in park staring at the GPS, trying to figure out whether to go right or left. At some point, you got to put the thing in drive and go. And it's getting frustrating. And look, I know in the political sphere and all that stuff, horse racing isn't at the top for a lot of people. And truthfully for myself, it's higher than most, but it isn't terribly at the top. But we're talking about a bill, and we're talking about something that was sponsored by a Democrat from New York and a Republican from Kentucky in 2020 or post 2016 election. That is unheard of. This is like the easiest bill that has been, and it's frustrating that it seems like everything is there, but everyone's kind of looking around going, well, who's going to make the first move?
Right.
Somebody. I don't care who it is. Once again, even if it goes this way, it's frustrating because at this point now, we're losing horses, and it's getting more and more difficult to.
And you will have a faction who already doesn't like the sport of kings. You'll have that faction, and they're going to have backing, and they're going to have political clout. And pretty soon you're going to start seeing a lot of rules, regulations forced upon the industry. As opposed to right now, they've got the bill in place. If they just take the reins, hold of the reins, and make something happen, they can hopefully avoid all that.
Yeah.
And on a lesser scale, but not really, because it's still a fatality. Another horse at Del Mar died.
Yeah.
Just, I think it was a race on the 29th and incurred an injury, and they found out after the fact that they weren't going to be able to surgically repair the horse, so it had to be euthanized. So that's the 3rd one since beginning of the racing season here as well. So it's just not good,
Yeah.
When it has to be part of what we talk about each and every week, that's not a good thing.
Definitely. Believe me, I think both myself and Raider Jim, it's not something that we want to start things off with. It is kind of a very sad situation, and there's a cloud. There's no doubt about it. And you talked about that faction, and unfortunately, when these incidents continue to happen, that faction gains not only, people, but it gains voice and power. And I'm not even saying that they're wrong in some. I do believe they are wrong in certain things, but I think we're all in agreement that something needs to change. I just hope it's done with people who have been in the industry for a long period of time. Because if you bring in outside sources, that's where I get a little worried, because sometimes 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4.
Right.
In any profession, I think we've all dealt with it. Someone comes in from corporate to your, normal job and says, you should do this, this, and this. Well, yeah, that seems great on paper, but have you met my regular Karen, or, something like that? So everything is great until it's kind of put to the test. But I think it's time to put things to the test and figure out what we need to do. But one little side note before we do dive into last week's notes, I did see a article right pretty much 10 minutes before I hit record. Didn't dive into it, but apparently the people who essentially run Pimlico are looking to reschedule or at least push back the Preakness Stakes. And both myself and Raider Jim, when we talked about Churchill's situation, we talked about the Triple Crown schedule and how, while we understand that it's great to see, you know, these horses go through it and, you know, really see the best of it's not terribly worth it anymore. And it sounds like maybe Pimlico is on there as well. Belmont on their side, at least from what the headline and the kind of caption said, doesn't seem so readily ready to go, but we'll see what that does for the Triple Crown. But I think the horses need to be put first in any situation. So,
right.
But with that being said, it's time to kind of look back at last weekend's big races. We'll of course start at Saratoga, the Saratoga Derby, Grade 1. We saw program trading being led by, of course, the dynamic duo of Flavian Pratt and Chad Brown. Beat out Web Slinger and Far Bridge. Sticking at Saratoga, the Grade 3 Troy, just 5.5 furlongs on that turf track. Coburn, trained by Steve Asmussen, outruns No Balls and Thin White Duke. Then, of course, we did talk about the test. That was pretty mischievous, beating out Clearly Unhinged and Money's Gold. Switching to Del Mar, we, of course, saw the Clement L. Hurst. That was a win and you're in race to the Breeders' Cup. Adar Manor, trained by Bob Baffert. It's been a little while since I've said his name for a big stakes win, at least something that we cover, but beat out Desert Dawn and Elm Drive. And, of course, the big race of last weekend, Whitney, and it was not Cody's Wish, obviously. The big heavy favorite, White Abaro, gets the win. Zandon comes in second, followed by Cody's Wish. Raider Jim, what were your thoughts, obviously, on last weekend's kind of the other lesser things that happened last weekend?
Yeah, and looking back at the Saratoga card, I will tell you, if you go back and listen to the podcast from last week, we had a pretty darn good day. For the race 6, the Troy Stakes, we had Nobles on our ticket. We did not have Thin White Duke, who got the show. However, special mention was made on the 3-horse Cogburn, Asmussen's horse, because was not the favorite, paid $17, $634.40. So it was a little bit, I think it was like an 8-1 or a little bit more than 8-1 when it left the gate. But comments were made by the original Call to Post that Asmussen has this horse back on track, no pun intended, and don't be surprised if that horse ends up in the money. Well, ended up in the winner's circle. So, you know, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we're going to pat ourselves on the back. We did have down as the favorite, like many people did, the 4-horse Caravel, but Caravel was bumped at the start of the race, could never really right the course after that, and ended up coming in 4th. Otherwise, you know, you never know, and was bumped by Cogburn, who was actually bumped by somebody else. So it was just kind of like the Keystone Cops when they came out of the gate on the Troy Stakes. Race 8, the Test Stakes, unfortunately for the accident. But that aside, original Call to Post, we had Pretty Mischievous. We had the horse that got put down. I don't know why it escapes me now. And we also had Money's Gold, the show horse. We did not have Clearly Unhinged. Came in at 17-1 in the place position, which wasn't bad. Ended up being a pretty good value on the place and the show. And then the Saratoga Derby, the 9 race, we actually got all of them. We had program trading, the 2. We had Web Slinger, the 6. We had Farbridge, the 5. The only one that was mentioned by original Call to Post that didn't really do much of anything was the number 1 horse, Mondego. Skittish in the gate and came out of the gate, never really got good footing, didn't really compete, didn't push too hard on anywhere in the race. But that wasn't a bad race, bad ticket either, you know, to get all 3 positions. Whitney Stakes, Cody's Wish, like a lot of people, we had Cody's Wish winning that one, but it didn't win. It did get the show. Zandon, as you said, got the place. White Barrio at 10-1, and we did have all three of those horses on our ticket. So we did pretty good at Saratoga last week. And as far as Del Mar goes, that Clement Hirsch Stakes, we did have the 3-horse Adair Manor. We had the 1-horse Elm Drive. We did not have the 5-horse Desert Dawn. And Fun to Dream, which was Baffert's other horse. Fun to Dream also got kind of batted around coming out of the gate, and even not really stumbled, but more kind of like skipped coming out of the gate, was a little skittish in the gate, and never really got good footing. Did start to come around though, as they came around the home stretch, was pushing, but was already too far back, wasn't going to make up on it. But still, we did pretty good last week. And as far as Del Mar goes, right now the top 3 jockeys are Juan Hernandez, Hector Barrios, and Humberto Rispoli. Each of them already pulling in over $1 million in purse money. And on trainers, it's Phil D'Amato at number 1, followed by Bob Baffert, Doug O'Neill. D'Amato also has already banked over $1 million in Del Mar money. But watch out, because Baffert's kind of hot right now, and he's got some good horses coming up for the summer.
Yeah, great stuff. And really also points out the humbleness of my co-host, because the entire time it was we. But if you remember last week, there was no we. It was all Raider Jim. So I do appreciate him filling in while I dealt with some family stuff. But yeah, that shows you right there the humbleness of Raider Jim. There was no I in that at all, even though there should have been. So I do appreciate that. And, maybe that's your cue. When I'm on, just mute me, wait till Raider Jim starts talking, and that's how you cash these bets. But no, the end of the day,
this is a partnership, my friend. This is a partnership.
Sir, yes, sir.
We are a team.
We are. But no, really, obviously, tough with what had happened, but overall, really good racing. And we want that to be the main story. But if it is a story as well, that isn't anything to kind of scoff at either. But it is kind of time to take a look at the weekend ahead. And we have a really, really good slate. As I mentioned, we have 7 races to preview. We are going to start in Saratoga. We are going to start with the Saratoga Special. Let me get my notes already here. It's going to be race number 8. It is a grade 2, 6.5 furlong on the dirt. This is going to be for 2-year-olds. So this is kind of one of those interesting ones. The rookies, if you will, are getting rolling here. But a $200,000 purse, as I said, grade 2. I'll get this one started. 6.5 furlongs on dirt. So going a little bit, not a whole lot to go on. Myself, I'm a big fan of the past performances. This one, you're going to have to kind of trust your gut, maybe check out the workouts, this or that, however you like to play the 2-year-olds. It's going to be a little difficult for me, myself. I look things over. The main horse that jumped out to me, and it's no surprise, it is already less than even money. It is the 6-horse. Only 6 horses running in this race as well, to point out. But it's the 6-horse Rhyme Schemes, currently 4 to 5. But what's going to jump out to you is has ran twice. Last time out ran a 94. Which for a 2-year-old is incredible. Hence the 4 to 5 odds. Just to kind of put it into perspective, the closest number any other horse has, once again, small sample size for all of these horses, but Edified, the 5-horse, ran a 69. That's the closest anyone's been to that 94. So Rhyme Schemes probably not going to be a ton of value here. But if you're looking for a kind of a weird exotic in this 6-horse race, I think Rhyme Schemes has to be a part of it. The second horse that I do like is the 4-horse Hall at 3 to 1. Ran well last time out, broke its maiden in its debut. Cost just over $250,000. So the breeding, and there are obviously a lot of people who expect big things from this horse, but it's going to take a lot to run down Rhyme Schemes, especially if it ran like last time. And the other horse that's going to make it onto my ticket is the 5-horse Edified. Ran well once again last time out, running a 69 in its debut. Did win by nearly 4 lengths in a maiden special weight. And this is another horse that cost almost $700,000. So a lot of kind of expectations for these 3 horses. Look, I'm going chalk. This is the equivalent of picking 4 number 1 seeds to make your final 4. But it's 2-year-olds. It's a small field. Sometimes you just got to see the ball go through the hoop. And that's kind of how I feel about this race. I think that, trifecta box might not be the most profitable trifecta box you'll ever have, but I think it's one that you'll feel pretty confident about. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually like the 4-horse Hall to hopefully cross first. I like Rhyme Scheme. I just don't think there's enough there on the experience side of it. I think, and not only that, it's Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz. Irad Ortiz is riding out of his mind right now. I swear you could put him on a 3-legged horse right now, and he's probably going to end up in the money or in the winner's circle. So I like 4, and then I also like 6. 6 will be on my ticket, Rhyme Schemes. And one of my long shot upsets of the day is going to be the 2-horse Market Street at 10-1. It gives you good value on your ticket. Not a bad horse as far as speed goes, and you can't look past the coach, D. Wayne Lucas, and say that there's not a chance for this horse to finish in the money. And then underneath, I do like the 5-horse Edified. So we are in agreement that we've got 3 horses that are probably going to end up in the money. There's something about Market Street, the little bit of research I was able to find on it. So that's it for me. 4, 6, 2, and 5 will be on my ticket.
Yeah, just full disclosure on my end, I did check out Market Street. Something that jumped out to me, something you always kind of bring my attention to. This horse made its debut June 29th, ran again July 15th. So only 2 weeks there. Took a little bit of a step back. Ran very well in its debut, put up a 63, which is really good. But the one thing that kind of turned me off to it was a sloppy track. I don't know. I just wonder if maybe that played more into it. But I think that's a great bet because once again, this is not, you're going to have to go outside the 3 horses that I picked out, either 1, 2, or 3. If you really want to find some value in just one straight horse, it's going to have to be one of those 3 horses. I think their numbers are going to inflate. Currently, Market Street, Wood Court, which is the 2 and 3, they're 10-1. And then the 1 horse is the longest shot of all at the moment at 15-1, Lasso. I think those numbers are only going to grow as majority of the money comes into those 3 horses. So who knows, maybe throw an umbrella on those 3 horses and hope someone gets into the money. And they will still do the across the boards. We got win, place, and show on 6 horses.
6 horses, yeah.
Yeah, that's the minimum, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you're all going to get paid out 3 times. It's not one of those win place races. So just got enough horses in. We'll see how that one goes. And then shifting to definitely one of the bigger races of the weekend. We go from the 2-year-olds to the 3-year-olds and up, going a mile on the inner turf. It is the grade 1 4-star Dave handicap, the purse at $500,000. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us. Oh, and I apologize. This is also a win and you're in Breeders' Cup race. It'll get you a ticket to the FanDuel Mile, not to be confused with the Big Ass Fans Mile. That's the dirt. This is the FanDuel. This will be on turf. So you win, you get your Breeders' Cup ticket punched. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this isn't going to be a value ticket on this one, and I think it's going to be pretty hands down. There's a lot of gap, if I remember correctly, looking at the different entries, several that have not run since last summer or even October. So you're really, really kind of limited on what you're going to pull from the information on Equibase right now. But that all said, again, looking at Irad Ortiz, I like him on Annapolis, the 4-horse. It's Annapolis, Irad Ortiz, and Todd Pletcher. The 6-horse Casa Creed, but it's 7-5. So again, that's why I say there's no value on this race really. 4 is at 8-5. Casa Creed, the 6 horses at 7-5. And then I do like bringing up, rounding out the ticket, the 1-horse Emmanuel. That's Irad's brother Jose, but also trained by Todd Pletcher. That's 3-1 right now, and that's probably the best value that I can see going through each entry in this field.
Yeah, I was very high on both Annapolis and Emmanuel, but as you said, I mean, 3-1 with Emmanuel, I don't even like that in terms of the value. And I definitely Annapolis is a great horse, but 8-5, not the way I bet. Let's just put it that way. So for the I kind of had to look outside of that. You did, of course, bring up Casa Creed, even shorter odds there. So I went kind of looking for some of the place show bet, and two of the horses that jumped out to me, definitely big long shots, and I think for me are definitely worth a look. First one is going to be the 5-horse, So High, out of Great Britain. Excuse me. One concern I do have here, though, it's a very quick turnaround. This horse ran in the United Nations, which was 2 weeks ago. We broke down that race, so it ran July 22nd. So a very, very quick turnaround there. But look, ran in 94 in that race. Now a ton of talent there, just like this race as well. But at 20-1, I'm willing to take that. I mean, this horse went off the board in the United Nations at 58-1 and finished 2 lengths off of that therapist win. So I think there's value there. Once again, probably not, an exotic with So High, but a place show ticket. There's going to be some value there. And then the other one is another international horse. It's the 7-horse Ice Chocolat. It's currently 8-1, so not as much value there. But it's been very consistent. Last 3 runs have been 96, 93, 95. That was synthetic at Woodbine, and then back-to-back turfs back on the East Coast, Belmont and Saratoga, respectively. Has ran against these horses, Annapolis, Casa Creed, obviously, unfortunately for Ice Chocolate, and as the odds will tell you, hasn't beaten those horses, but sometimes that familiarity might be something. As Raider Jim kind of alluded to, not a ton of value in this race. So you have to go looking, and sometimes when you go looking, you got to do some reaching, and that's what I had to do. But I do think Ice Chocolat or So High, look, a 3rd place finish for So High would probably pay out more than a Casa Creed Annapolis exacta box, if we're being honest. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But once again, that will get you into the FanDuel Mile, the Breeders' Cup up at Santa Anita later this November. But we're going to switch to a track that I'm not terribly familiar with. It's one of the first times I've talked about Colonial Downs, but their big weekend is upon us. 3 races we're going to be previewing, one of which will get you into the Fillies and Mares Turf Classic at Santa Anita, as we talked about. The first race we are going to preview, however, is going to be the Grade 2 Secretariat Stakes. I'll get this one started. We're going a mile on the dirt, a mile on the inner turf. This is for 3-year-olds. The purse, a nice $500,000, pretty good for a Grade 2. But for me, the horse that jumps out is, and I think has good value, is the 4-horse Mo Stash at 5-1 currently. This is a horse that this year, 87, 90, 91, 90. All at turf, all at this similar length, even going, a mile and a 16th, going even longer. So I really do think at 5-1, Mo Stash, like that value. The other horse that I have an eye on is right there on the rail, probably. I don't know if it's the morning line. No, it is not the morning line, but it is still a heavy favorite. It is the 1-horse Silver Knot out of Great Britain. Charles Appleby. I'm not terribly familiar with too many European trainers. Charles Appleby is probably the only one. He brings horses to the Breeders' Cup. It seems like every other horse race, you're seeing him in the winner's circle with one of his horses. I really like what I've seen out of this horse since it came stateside. But I will say we'll need to improve on the numbers. It hasn't been in the 90s here stateside, and even the time form, not great numbers. So 3-1, we'll see. I'm a little hesitant towards that horse, and then some other ones. The 3-horse Megarock is trained by Graham Motion. That's not a ton of value at the moment, but once again, 89, 90, 90 in its last 3 races going forward. Major Dude is another horse to keep an eye on, depending on how the odds go. Didn't run very well last time, and I think that's why this horse is 6-1, ran only a 78, but prior to that was 90, 91. The 91 was on synthetic, but 90, 3, and then 90. And then once again, did of course take a little bit of a drop, but if this horse runs in the 90s, it's 6-1. It is going to get in the money. And then the final horse I did want to bring up is the 7 horse, another horse that I think has a ton of value. 5-1. But the big question for this horse last time out in the Manila went off at 7-1, won that grade 3, ran in 94, but prior to that hadn't been higher than 81. So was it a fluke? 5-1, I might need to see that number get a little closer to 8-1 before I really hop on board. But those are the horses that jumped out to me. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, number 3, Nagarock, and that's because it's my favorite jockey, Flavian Pratt's going to be in the saddle on that one. 5-2, as you said, not a great value, but hey, it could very well be a sure bet. I like the 7 horse after that at 5-1, which makes the ticket a little more valuable, more than looks at 5-1, and then one of the horses that you called out, number 4, Mustache at 5-1. Definitely have that one on my ticket. And then my underneath horse is going to be the 6th horse, Major Dude, at 6-1. Major Dude has actually run fairly well. Had a little bit of issues in the last race out, came in 4th, but there was some jostling that took place out of the gate. And I think that was the difference. Prior to that, had won a grade 2, went to the winner's circle. And prior to that, back in May, ended up getting the show in the grade 2 American Turf Stakes at Churchill Downs. So I think Major Dude, if all conditions are great, is going to really make a run for it, and not going to be surprised if he ends up in the money. Now, I do know that before we came on today and hit record, one of the things that came across my phone was they had to postpone at least one race over at Saratoga. And I don't know if it was just Saratoga or if it's anywhere near where Colonial Downs is, because they were having power issues that were being created by the weather. So interesting to keep our eyes on that. And again, I know that on today's weather report, they were just talking about these horrendous storms that are going to be ripping through parts of the east. So one thing to consider also, is it going to end up being sloppy tracks as opposed to dry tracks?
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I did just kind of do a little, because I wasn't terribly familiar with Colonial Downs. It's
They're tied to a casino, actually.
yeah, Kent County.
Yes.
So it's, they said adjacent to Interstate 64. I don't know if that's a good address for you, between Richmond and Williamsburg, but in the Virginia area, obviously that Commonwealth. So the East, it's unfortunately that time of year. But hopefully we will be able to get those races ready to roll, going forward.
And they're actually showing right now on the forecast, Saturday, 92 degrees. Wow.
Yikes. Well, best of luck to them out there. Stay cool.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated. It's the summer, folks. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, Secretariat Stakes. You don't have to be a horse racing legend to know what horse that was named after. It's kind of interesting. Like I said, Colonial Downs, one of the first times it's hopped on. And this is just my own personal, head in the sandness. First time I've kind of dove into what we've seen here at Colonial Downs. But moving on to the second win and you're in race we are going to talk about this weekend. It's race number 9 at Colonial Downs. This will be a ticket into the fillies and mare turf. It is the Beverly D Stakes. The purse is $500,000. This is for 3-year-old and 3-year-old fillies and up, going 1 mile and 3/16. It is a grade 1. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us started here.
Sure, I'm leading off my ticket with the 5-horse Didia out of Argentina. I think that horse is gonna be bringing it. It has some pretty good speed behind it. After that, I like the 7-horse Rocky Sky out of Ireland at 6-1. Both of those make it a pretty nice ticket. There's a little bit of value there. The favorite, Bev Rover, on the rail, I'm not sold. I mean, right now the early morning line is 2-1. I'm not sold that it's going to be the best horse in the field. Of course, I could be wrong on that, but I think that horse definitely is going to push to finish in the money. And my long shot of the day is probably going to be underneath on my ticket, and that's the 2-horse Jan's Girl at 12-1. you really have potential for some good value on this ticket. If you can get 12-1 on Jan's Girl and Rocky Sky at 6-1, if those numbers hold true or even close, not a bad payoff.
Yeah, I agree on both of those. I'm interested to see Fev Rover here. Obviously, the 2-1 kind of scares me off, but last time out in the Diana and even back at the Nassau, 2 for 2 this year,
Yeah.
and 99s in both of those runs. However, I do think in this situation, what are we going to see? Because this is a really talented field and a very international field. There are 7 horses, only 2 of which are North American horses. So a lot of Ireland, a lot of Argentina, which you brought up. Obviously, Didia was the one that definitely jumped out to me as well. But I do wonder. It's kind of for me, whichever is the second favorite between Didia and Fev Rover is probably going to be the horse that gets my nod, just because I think you'll probably get 5-2, 3-1, and then the horse or the favorite's going to go off pretty close to even money. So there may be something there, and I'm with you there with the 7-horse Rocky Sky. I also did circle Geo Romantica. Look, 5-1. A little bit of a concern, 89 last time out. That's not the pace that you're going to need to be looking for. Even career best of 91 is still well off the pace. But you have the dynamic duo, Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt. And I think that's probably a big reason why we see 5-1 for a horse that speed numbers do not reflect 5-1 in this field. I think the number will inflate just because we're going to have so much money put into those 2 big horses and then spread out throughout the rest. I'd love to see Gina Romantica closer to 8-1. I don't know if it'll get there, but I think anytime you can get Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt, as you said, alluded to it, you can get those 2 together anytime. I think you'll feel pretty good about that, but I do worry about, the actual horse on side of it. I think might be a little out of its depths, but if any duo can kind of get the most out of a thoroughbred, it's going to be those 2. But that will, of course, as we said, get you into the win, and you're in Breeders' Cup Fillies and Mare Turf at Santa Anita. And for the final race, we'll be talking about at Colonial Downs. This is going to be the Grade 1 Arlington Million. And as the name implies, the purse gives you a nice, cool $1 million. You're going on the outer turf, a 1.25 miles. This is for 3-year-olds and up. I'll get this one started. For myself, one of the first horses that jumped out to me, value and everything else included, is the 2-horse Never Explain. This is a horse that essentially, going back to March, 94, 97, 97, 95. All on turf, all at very similar distances, even last time out going 1 mile and 3/8. So, I think a lot of value at 6-1. And once again, when you're putting those speed numbers together, I'm a fan of that. Then you do have Rock Emperor is another horse that jumped out to me. Last time out took a big step back, but this is a horse that had 4 triple-digit runs going back to the October of 2021, and everything in between was in the high 90s, except for a very unfortunate situation at Belmont back in May of 2022. Only ran in 18. It was bumped at the line. You kind of have to throw that one out. But Rock Emperor was one that definitely get there. I do think that last time out, it was in the Manhattan, maybe a little more than that horse was ready for. We'll see if it can kind of come back to it. A big long shot for me here is actually the 1-horse, currently 15-1. Look, 88 last time out, did improve, but that won't get the job done. But I look back to May at Belmont. This horse ran a 95 in the Man of War. That was a 50-1 shot. And then, of course, I like to see those horses, see what they can do, but definitely a very high long shot. Probably won't make it onto my ticket, but I really do like the 2 and the 5-horse here in this ticket. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Big field, 11 horses, a lot of fast horses in this one too. I'm actually leading my ticket with the 8-horse Catnip at 8-1. Catnip's been running very, very well. I have the 2-horse Never Explain next at 6-1. The favorite right now, our early morning line favorite, is at 7-2, and that's the 4-horse Atone. I think Atone's, of course, is going to probably finish in the money. I have that horse in the 3 spot right now. And then my underneath horse, as much as I don't like to put more than 4 if I just try to avoid that. Hard to not put Rock Emperor on my ticket, but I'm not putting it on my ticket. Instead, I'm going to go with the 3-horse Set Piece at 6-1. That horse has been running very, very well, very, very fast. Laurent Giroux, Brad Cox. Don't be surprised if that horse doesn't make a run for it down the stretch.
Yeah, and it's funny, I did check out Atone and Catnip, and kind of for 2 different reasons. I just kind of put them off. Atone hasn't ran since May.
Yes.
So once again, that could have nothing, no bearing over everything, or it could mean something else. And for the opposite reason, I kind of overlooked Catnip. This is a horse that also ran in the United Nations, just less than a month ago on July 22nd. So I do wonder, if that workload is catching up. This will be its 6th race of the year already for Catnip, and obviously, want to keep going forward. But I do think there's a lot of value here in this race. Kind of different than some of the other races, but I do think you can really dive in, and a lot of it's going to be how those morning line odds move, at least for myself, to kind of be the final bearing on how my ticket looks when it's all said and done. But
yeah, Catnip's also having real good workouts, has been the top workout horse the last 2 times out. Was number 1 on July 15th out of 29 horses. And then just 2 days ago was number 1 out of 32. So running pretty good right now. Sounds like he's nice and relaxed, or he's nice and relaxed. Should be an interesting race. Can't wait to see this one. It's going to be, I don't think it's just going to be settled at the gate. It's going to be the whole race.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like it's going to be. I mean, obviously, look, $1 million purse. You're going to get some of the big players and some of the big horses, and that's what we are seeing here. But time to switch our focus to our backyard here on the West Coast. The final 2 races we'll be breaking down for you are going to be coming to you from the Seaside Oval, Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, our home track. We're going to start with the Grade 3 Sorrento. This is a $200,000 purse. This is for 2-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us started. What are your thoughts on the Grade 3 Sorrento?
Oh, wow. I see some morning lines now. I didn't see them this morning when I was looking at making my notes. So that's kind of a good thing. So on the Sorrento, that's where we're at. The Grade 3 Sorrento. I'm sure I have to write this. Yeah.
Sorry, I did. I'm looking at
leading on that one with the 3-horse Dua, the Kentucky horse Bob Baffert's at 5-2. Trust me, this one is going to be Baffert's to lose, but he's also got Juan Hernandez in the saddle. So I don't think there's going to be much issue with them finishing in the money, probably heading to the winner's circle on this one. Then I also like the 2-horse Dreamfire. Hector Barrios is having a great meet so far. At 3-1, it's going to be a good race between the 2-horse, the 3-horse. Then I also like the 8-horse Benedetta out of Kentucky. This the 2-year-old, 2-1 right now. Actually, the favorite in the race. I like the draw on the outside. Could position itself very well, and this is going to be a great 3-horse race, I think, with those 3. Underneath, I do like the chances that Joe Bravo might have on the 4-horse Vino's Angel at 4-1. Again, not a lot of value here because we're talking 3-1, 5-2, 2-1, 4-1. But I think that's what's going to happen in the Sorrento Stakes.
Yeah, Vendetta, obviously, look, 2-1 looks like that type of horse, cost $750,000, and obviously has kind of everything else, even Victor Espinosa aboard. So, but 2-1, I kind of had to look elsewhere. And one horse that jumped out to me, and once again, 2-year-olds are not my strongest suit, because I'm such a nerd for the numbers and experience and past performances. Well, you don't really get that with 2-year-olds, obviously. Pretty much most of these horses have ran 1 at most 2 races. Even the 6-horse, this is its debut, and it's in a graded stakes race. But no, the 7-horse, You're in Trouble. ran in Del Mar back in July, kind of the beginning of the meet. Might have been opening day if I remember correctly. But anyways, You're in Trouble 6-1, ran a 72, finished third to Dua, who of course we'll be talking about here momentarily. And Hope Road, that was actually a dead heat, it looks like here. So keep an eye there on You're in Trouble, currently 6-1. So I do think there is value there. Obviously, Dua is the other horse that definitely caught my eye, ran a 73 in that race I just talked about in its debut, did get the win. Just this horse looks like the real deal, as you said, kind of Baffert, JJ Hernandez, nice little West Coast connection there, $400,000 for this horse overall. And Dreamfire was definitely a horse that jumped out to me as well. Won the ungraded stakes race up in, I don't even know where that is. It was hand timed, so you do kind of have to take that 71 with a bit of a grain of salt, but we'll see how that goes. One horse that did jump out to me and kind of is my long shot is the one horse, Feisty Matol. And the one thing that really jumped out, look, it's 8-1 right now in that race with Dua and You're in Trouble. This horse was a heavy underdog, 12.5-1, and was only a half length off the lead. Ran a very, very good 72. Now currently 8-1. I think that number is going to get higher. I think there's plenty of value here in terms of, is this horse going to get in the money? I'm not sure, but I think this horse might present the most value when it's all said and done, especially if it can get in the money at anything higher than 10 or 12-1. I think you're feeling real good about a place show ticket there. So keep an eye on the one horse. Also Peter Miller, can't go wrong there, but it's going to be an interesting one for the 2-year-olds at Del Mar. But final race we'll be breaking down for you is the race number 9 at Del Mar. It's going to be the grade 2 yellow ribbon handicap, going 1 mile and 16th on the turf. It is a $250,000 purse for 3-year-old and up fillies, as I said, on the turf. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the grade 2 yellow ribbon?
Now, I'm kind of surprised looking at some of the past performance, the little bit I could find on these 7 entries. Closing Remarks, the one horse on the rail, is the current early line favorite at 5-2. But if you look at what it's done the last 3 races or so, it's kind of tapered off each race. I don't see where it's going to take control of the race this time. And 5-2 is kind of interesting because this horse has been running at Santa Anita. So it's not like we've got travel involved or anything else. It's just coming down to 5 and has been training here at Del Mar. It does have Umberto Rispoli riding, but I don't see Closing Remarks being the horse to beat in this race. I really think it's going to be at good value, 6-1, the 6 horse, Ganadora out of Kentucky. Juan Hernandez, Bob Baffert. Again, I think that's going to be a very, very good bet right now. And then I also like Spirit and Glory, the 3 horse, also at 6-1. I also like Turner Loose. Phil D'Amato actually has 3 entries in this race. Of all of them, even though School Dance is the 4 horse at 3-1, I actually like Turner Loose just a little bit more and a real good value at 8-1. So right now, if I can hit on this ticket, it's looking not too bad. Underneath of all that, I like the 7 horse at 4-1, Awake at Midnight. That's Doug O'Neill's horse.
Yeah, that was the one horse, 4-1, Awake at Midnight. Kind of have it placed in there's my, my 3rd tier. Really do like, obviously, Doug O'Neill training. Big fan of Nyquist as a sire. One thing here, however, this is a 4-year-old running in its 16th race. This will only be its 3rd run on the Del Mar turf. However, both times the horse was in the money. So Wake at Midnight mainly been running on the dirt. Last time out in the Osanitas, did run on the finish 2nd in that turf race. In an ungraded stakes race. This is kind of an interesting one. Not a lot of huge speed numbers going forward. Right. That's why Spirit and Glory, as you brought up, really caught my eye as well. I think it's 6-1. I go back to race at Monmouth late in May. This horse ran a 90 on the turf, and even before that ran an 87 at as well. So it was really interesting, see this horse at 6-1. And then I see Lucky Girl come in at 5-1. And this horse hasn't broke 80 since last March. However, this horse is Phil D'Amato trained. And I think that kind of does feed into it a little bit. This horse is kind of a Del Mar veteran. However, 5 runs on the turf, yet to make it in the money, or I should say the Del Mar turf, yet to make it in the money for Lucky Girl. So that's the one horse that, like, I always try and find, like, okay, I understand why this horse has these odds. I'm really confused as to why Lucky Girl is 5-1. And that scares me, if I'm being honest, because this horse on paper and everything I'm looking at looks closer to 15-1 than 5-1. So while I don't take this horse seriously, I'm going to be the one kicking myself if this horse comes in and wins, because you realize, okay, they did know something that I didn't know. And you did bring up closing remarks. I do like this horse, the consistency. For me, consistency is king. And go back all the way to January of last year. So essentially 2022 until right now, this horse, excuse me, 90, 88, 89, 88, 87, 87, 93, 92, 87. All of those on dirt, as Raider Jim said, all of those at Santa Anita. And this will be its 4th run on the Del Mar turf. The first 2 of 3 runs finished in the money. 5-2, I need to see some more value there. Hopefully get her close to 3, maybe 4-1. I'd love to see that. Post position, not ideal. But this is kind of a late breaking horse. So I think Carla Gaines keeps this horse on the rail, and trusts the abilities of this horse going down the stretch, possibly there. But I really, really do like Spirit and Glory in terms of value and everything put together. And of course, Awake at Midnight as well. Closing remarks, I want to see just a little bit more inflation on that number for me to fully buy in there. But that's the previews we have for you. Raider Jim, final thoughts for this episode of the original Call to Post.
Yeah, I didn't have stats down, but I am familiar with Brendan Walsh, so I just went to his profile real quick. In 2023 alone, he has already banked $6.4 million in purse money, and over his career, just under 42 million. This guy knows what okay. I mean, he works a lot with Godolphin, if not primarily
Definitely
with
East Coast.
Godolphin. Yeah. But he's but again, you can't speak highly enough about his character for what he did after that race.
And I think it also kind of speaks to him as a horse lover, right? And as I brought up earlier, I'm sure he put himself in her shoes, Mel's shoes. I her last name escapes me at the moment, but it's very kind of sobering. Obviously, it's not something I hope that next week when we hit record, we dive straight into the results of a fantastic weekend. But at the same time, we have a duty, we have an obligation. If we need to talk about it, we're going to talk about it, no matter how unpleasant it is. If it falls in the realm of horse racing, it's going to be covered here. Hopefully, going forward, we can have a situation where we start the episode off talking about maybe some government programs being put into place going forward. That would be probably best case scenario. That would be the only way that next week, that if this weekend's racing isn't our top story next week, I want it to be because the government finally kind of stepped in and said, okay, we need to put this plan into action now. But those are my final thoughts. Raider Jim, do you have anything else to add?
I don't. Just everybody stay cool, stay hydrated, keep the jockeys and the horses in your thoughts.
Amen. Yeah, it's hopefully we get through this weekend, and the worst thing that happens is your bet didn't come in. That is the goal. Obviously, I want us to win every single bet. But we're horse players. We know how that is. A 20% clip and you are a Hall of Famer or a liar. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the original Call to Post, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care and good luck.
That's safe.